what I'd like to do is having more, if you have questions, it's not just a presentation, I'm going to be talking at you, right? So if you have questions or I'm inviting also participation. Here, because really it is based on the knowledge and information and the research done by Bill Joyner and Stephen Joseph. Right? But I'll share a bit of my story and how I'm working on my own leadership agility, and hopefully that brings insight into how you can also work on your own leadership agility for yourself. Right? So this is the notion of the presentation in the talk. So a bit about myself. I think I covered this in the intro, right? I kind of mentioned I'm a program manager. These are labels that I carry: agile coach, creative catalyst, and so on, right? But I'm really on a journey of living my life purpose, right? And shifting from a life of success to a life of significance, right? And making more of a meaningful difference in the world, so that what I leave in the end when I leave this world is a legacy of the rest of it is like labels, right? In terms of the agenda, this is what I'm hoping to cover. Right, understanding of what leadership, why is leadership agility important, particularly in today's world, right? And then what is leadership agility, and covering some of the stage growth development that the research showed, right? And then based on that, understanding that what we can do, there's a compass, there's a leadership compass that we can employ, and then how we can utilize that leadership compass in our own lives to shift our own leadership agility and makes us more a better and more effective leader, essentially. So in today's world, what do we encounter in our world? What would we describe today's world?
Today's world?
Yes.
Fast-paced.
Fast-paced. Yes, that is true, right? We're dealing with rapid increasing change. It's very fast-paced. The dynamics shifts every single minute of the day. Right? That's the first for everyone, yes. We live in a very fast-paced world. Anything else about today's world? Hectic. Hectic. So hectic and fast-paced, yes. We're busy. Right?
You went past it already. Change.
Change.
So just the pace is up, but the direction keeps shifting.
So the pace of change, so it's increasing rapid change, and the dynamics, the world shifts all the time very quickly, right? So it's hectic, it's busy. Anything else you could describe today's world?
Uncertain.
Pardon me?
Uncertain.
Uncertain. That's another key one. So there's rapid increasing change, right? There's uncertainty. We live in a world of uncertainty because whatever existed today is changed like in 5 minutes or the next, right? Like we're dealing with a lot of uncertainty. I don't know if I'm going to have a job tomorrow, right? We live in a world of uncertainty. Anything else?
Knowledge is very accessible and getting out to the world.
Yeah, so we live in a very global world where everything is all interconnected. So the minute that something exists, it's like it can go viral, right? So we're very interconnected as a world. So that's another attribute of today's world of what exists and what we live in. Anything else?
Distractions.
Ready?
I said hype.
Hype?
Yeah, there's a lot of hype out there. All this change,
Yes.
just
Okay.
People are excited.
we're
about
not driving driverless cars in 3 years. I mean, there's a lot of hype about it.
Okay.
We'll
So
have this
yes, along
conversation.
comes with it, yes, there's media attention to
And that
hype.
gets back to uncertainty as well.
Right. Anything else anybody wants to add?
I was going to say distractions, right? Like so much information that you get so
So that is true. Connected with your, Marilyn mentioned about being interconnected and how everything is kind of, you're mentioning that related with that connectedness, that it causes distractions. Like we're always on, right? Like somebody's like right now, for example, so to point out to a person, Jackie is a bit distracted right now, right? She's looking at something, maybe it's important for her, and, right? Because we're multitasking a lot. So there are distractions we're always on, right? That kind of relates back to the busyness. So I think we all have a great handle on what exists in our world. Yes?
Another disruptive.
It is disruptive, part of the distractions, right?
A part of the change, I mean a big change, yeah? Like
When we come with big changes, yes, it can be disruptive, right? And this is where, as Agilists, we try to recommend incremental changes rather than revolutionary changes.
They're just going to throw conflicting information
information into the mix. So lots of information, different sources of information for who's right, who's wrong.
Okay, do you want to add on that? You seem to have,
It's almost not full of trade-offs and fun analysis.
okay?
It relates to fake news.
Okay, we're digressing a little bit. Okay. Right. So relatively, someone talked about earlier the increasing change, the uncertainty. What also that comes with is increasing complexity. Right? We have the interconnectedness. We're all connected. In terms of the world, right? Through computers, right? We can talk to people halfway across the world. So we're interconnected, but there's also a level of increasing complexity, right? So I'm not sure if you guys have heard of this, but there's a notion of VULCA, right? It's an abbreviated acronym, I guess, right? It stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And that really describes today's world, especially what we live in, right? So more and more, what we really need in such a world is leadership agility. So you all have described the world perfectly. I will just summarize here. So I'm going to ask the question then. So what does agility mean to you? Right? Like you guys, some of us do as Scrum Masters, and we're learning more on agility. What does agility really mean to you? I get a sense that people I work with, in my own organization, have a misconception about agility. And when I say that, the misconceptions are wrong. We seem to think agility is wrong, more, cheaper, faster.
It's the ability to pivot to meet the customers.
So being able to have, when we are able to pivot, right, based on the customer needs, that is a very valuable one. Yes, it is part of having that, it's part of agility, correct? And how would you describe that? So adaptability, having flexibility. So that's incorporated in the definition of agility, flexibility. But as part of that definition of agility is acting with purpose, right? And flexibility is one aspect. And there's more built into the definition, right? But we often don't get that sense of if we lead from a place of purpose, we will lead quite differently, right? Oftentimes as organizations, I'm not sure if you guys have seen this or not, but there's a video by Simon Sink, right? Anybody seen this? Start with Why by Simon Sink. Okay, you guys might want to check out the video. I have a reference, a picture of the book after the end, right? It starts with Why. His talk, it's a TED talk that Simon Sink has, right? He describes that oftentimes many organizations and many people don't really understand why. When we say why is, why are we here? What's my purpose? Why am I really working for this company? Or why am I in this life? Why, right? The why is not well known. His example was, for example, like Steve Jobs. When Steve Jobs was alive, he had better clarity around Apple's purpose as a company, right? Apple understood that they were not just building any old product. Their emphasis was around the user experience. They wanted to make sure that the product was simple and that they had an awesome user experience, right? The simplicity. So that's what his belief was and why he believed that Apple was in this business, was to have this stellar customer experience and to make it simple for the people that would then utilize the product. That was the basis of his why, right? And therefore he had a focus around being able to accomplish that. Right? So he left, I'm not saying he was, there are drawbacks to retirement, he was a person, right? But in terms of his purpose, he understood his purpose in his company and how he led and how that led differently from Apple and how Apple had big success under the reins of leadership of Steve Jobs, for example. And so there's notion of purpose built into the definition and flexibility. We're also collaborating, so a part of agility as well is collaborating. We want to collaborate closely with our stakeholders, right? So collaboration is a key part of our agility definition as well, and we're collaborating with disparate stakeholders. In addition, we also have that we're solving, coming up with creative solutions to complex problems. that's what we're in the business of. We're not in the business of software or making this widget and that widget. We're in the business of solving a customer's problem that we come up with. Right? And this is the notion that we mentioned about being able to pivot. Because part of pivoting is part of our agility is being able to experiment. And that's where pivoting comes in. Because as we experiment, we pivot and find where's the next path. That's part of our agility definition. We're working with, collaborating with disparate stakeholders. We're leading with, we're acting from a position of flexibility. So the other part of the definition of agility is around continuous improvement. Right? So we're all continually learning and changing. So all of this is embedded in the definition around what is agility. Right? So we're working in this world where we're coming up with solutions, right? Creative solutions to complex problems, right? We're leading and acting from a place of purpose and flexibility. We're collaborating with our disparate stakeholders, and we're continually learning and changing. This definition, it then falls back into the leadership compass when we get into the leadership compass. So this is what agility really means, and it doesn't mean faster, cheaper, more, faster, cheaper, which is oftentimes what I have a sense that many have a misconception of what agility means. Then what does leadership agility mean if this is what the definition of agility means? Anybody have a guess of what we think leadership agility then means?
Enabling this to happen.
Pardon me?
Just enabling this, like enabling your.
Enabling is a key point of it, yes, right? Because we want to be able, as leaders, how do we help enable this? So that is part of it. Just review of the answer. Any other guesses? So leadership agility is around being able, it's the ability to take effective action in complex, ever-changing situations. So it's like a camera. You want to be able to focus in, and you want to be able to take a step back, reassess your situation, right, and take a deeper, broader view, and then step back into it and engage and take action. So as leaders, we do that all the time, every day long. And the more we're able to practice this, so there's a process later on, it talks about the reflective active action cycle that we are able to employ as a tool. And the more we utilize that tool in our conversations and the things that we do on a day-to-day basis, the more we exercise that reflective action cycle, the more we're acting as this camera all the time, and the stronger those muscles become. And that's how we're able to build and grow our leadership agility. Right? So this is the definition around leadership agility. Think of yourself as a camera and having to focus in, right? Take a step back, right? Think about the broader view of things, the deeper, broader view, and then taking the step back in and taking action. Rather than just immediately taking action because you may not have considered certain things. So in terms of as agile leaders, right, our mindset is a shift. And I think some of us who are like Scrum Masters and have a background, I know some of us don't have a background in Agile, but for those that do, we understand that the Agile mindset has to shift, right? And our shift is from a planning and predicting to more, so uncertainty, we experiment more. We having to sense and respond is how we deal with uncertainty and complexity, right? That's how we combat it. In terms of managing for results, which has been an older paradigm, is how do we create the conditions and design these conditions and the environment for setting us up for delivering value and gaining results, rather than just managing for results, right? So there's a mindset shift we're having to do. And as we're able to make that mindset shift, it's not just about doing Agile, but it's about being Agile. And this is where, for me, my life has shifted, right? From a professional to a personal, and Agile has totally changed me, or I have changed. I've gone through my own personal transformation, and this is where it helps with becoming a more effective Agile leader. Right? So in terms of, they did a study, the economists this study was done in about 7 years ago in 2010, right? Economist is a a magazine in the UK, right? They did a study and they asked executives, they asked, is agility important for your business? So 9 out of 10, so 90% of those that they surveyed said it's important and critical for their business. Yet only 74% are acknowledging that they're saying that they're not agile enough, right? So why is there a gap? If it's so important, why is not more of them indicating that they're agile? And the gap is really around, we're not investing. When I say investing in the people to grow the capabilities and skills needed for an agile leader, right? That's kind of what's constraining us. And if we're not growing as people individually to have those leadership skills throughout the organization, then it's constraining on leadership agility, so our organizational agility, and it's constraining being able to sustain meaningful change that we want to stick around. It's hard to sustain that level of change, right, given the dynamics of the world that we live in where change is very rapid. So what can we really do to help build our capacities, right, this understanding a bit more? So this is a bit more about the study, right, which I mentioned earlier, right? It's around leadership agility is constrained by our organization, it's constraining our organizational agility, and we found that high-performing cultures are really, they have more agile leadership, is what this other studies found, which is the Institute of Corporate Productivity. So through this research here of the leadership agility by Bill Joyner and Stephen Joseph, what they've found, and through their research, and this research book dates back to 10 years ago, 2007, right? They established, or they found their stage growth development that we go through, right? As a kid, from a baby, when your babies are on the floor, they're exploring, right? They don't know anything, they'll put this in their mouth, they're like, ah, right? They're explorers. It's kind of where we start off in life, right? We don't really know, so we're exploring. And then, as teenagers, we're enthusiastic, we want to try this, and we want to try this, right? Like you go on your first date and what have you, right? So we grow it through these stages, and we become, as an adult, an expert. I went to university, I studied in this field, or whatever your path in life you've taken to get to wherever you are, you've done certain things and studied certain things, right? So you're knowledgeable in a certain area, whether that's coding or design or whatever, project management, it doesn't really matter, right? But you have certain knowledge, and therefore that makes you an expert, right? You have this knowledge, and when we lead from a place of being an expert, I then want to tell you what needs to be done. And well, nobody wants to be told what needs to be done, right? We're smart, competent people, and we don't need to be told what needs to be done. What we're needing more is for me to invite you and have more inspiration, invite that participation, right? And I've learned to participate more as well, right? It's stepping up and showing up differently. So the next levels that they described, there's an achiever, there is a catalyst, a co-creator, and a synergistic leader are the next levels of leadership, right, in terms of stage growth development as leaders, right? And what the research have shown us, what they found, and this was 2007, but I don't think that the numbers have fluctuated a whole lot from since then. The numbers were that 45% of us are expert leaders. So most of our middle managers are expert leaders. We lead as experts. There are 35% that are achievers, and less than 10% are post-heroic leaders. The catalyst, co-creator, and synergistic are less than 10%. And 10% are the pre-adult stages, or the conformer. So this is what the research has shown us. So what really are the characteristics of a post-heroic leader, a co-creator, a catalyst, a synergistic leader? What are they like? What, their characteristics? So they're deeply purposeful, which is back to the definition of agility, what agility means, having a sense of purpose. The more visionary in their thinking, the more inspiring. And in the end, really, the more about leading with emotional intelligence. This is where Mike talks about people, and that he's a people person. Well, I would admit, I was not always a people person, right? I came from a very technical background. I was once a coder, and I came from a world, particularly in the way I grew up with my parents' upbringing as well, was like, leave me alone and, I'll do my stuff, kind of thing, right? But I've learned since then, along in my journey, that people and relationships are what matter. Because in the end, as Maya Angelou said, it's not what you heard, what somebody tell you, or what somebody did. They're not going to remember that. What people remember is how you made them feel, right? So people matter. Because at the end of the day, when we all go home to the Maker, a lot of the things that occur in our world, they don't matter, right? So this is where I've learned to shift my perspective on life and how, I operate in this life, right? And what is important to me. So I've learned to understand what my purpose in life is, and therefore what are my challenges and how do I work with that. So it really comes down to, right, and how does someone, a leader that leads with more emotional intelligence, they have a greater sense of working with conflict. And I would admit that's an area I'm working on, and that's where you'd see later on, because I recognize and have been given feedback, right, around this, that I'm not as good in conflict, in terms of managing conflict, and so it is a particular area that I am working on specifically through my own development goals to improve my leadership agility. So I stand up and I admit that publicly, right? Because I have a conflict with one of my colleagues at work right now, and we're working through that and having conversations around that. Right? But it doesn't come, right? Part of it comes through being self-aware. Why am I more self-aware? The exercise we did at the beginning, which is a meditation exercise. So part of the shift in my own life is how I have this connection with the Supreme and the Divine. And that connection of meditation, my practice of meditation, is a daily practice. Before my eyes open, and before I get off the bed, before I open my eyes and say, hello world, I'm here, is to make that connection, to be grateful and have that moment of meditation, is what I do as a daily practice. And before I go to sleep, it's the same thing. I'm grateful for having today and being alive today and for all the blessings in my life, right? And I make sure to have that moment and connection, right? And in doing so, what that helps, it shifts your life. Meditation really shifts your life. And there are books that describe it, and I didn't understand it before. And if you want to experiment, again, it's an avenue to help build your leadership agility. And in doing so, you will recognize the shifts, and I could talk more about that after the talk if anybody's interested, right? But doing so, it makes you more self-aware. It makes you aware of your emotions and how you can have better responses in the interactions and the conversations we have with each other on a day-to-day basis. So these are, and it also makes you resilient, right? An exercise we did at MindCamp to prove our resiliency is an exercise. You can try the exercise if you're interested. If someone stands here and another person stands behind them, so if you want to have two volunteers. Anybody's volunteering? Mike is volunteering. Okay, we have another volunteer here. Okay, so you're going to stand, and Mike is going to stand behind you, and Mike is going to try and push you over.
How hard?
Okay with that? Right, so it's easy to push him over. So now what I want you to do, again, like we were doing the meditation practice, close your eyes, and as you close your eyes, I want you to focus on a color. And as you're focusing on that color, focus on the intensity of that color. So that's what you're doing. You're focusing on that color. If you see that color, just focus on the intensity of the color. As the color is getting brighter and more intense, keep focusing on that color. Mike is going to approach you and try to push you over. You keep focusing on that color. Keep focusing on the intensity of that color.
That was impressive. I had already done it once.
Closed. Keep your eyes
Try it
closed
again?
and keep focused on the intensity of the color. You need to keep focusing on the intensity of the color. Just the intensity of the color. Keep focusing, keep focusing, keep focusing on the intensity of the color. Keep focusing.
I've done it 3 times.
Push
Good
him
job.
over. Did you try? Were you able to push him over?
No, like the first
Yeah.
time. Sorry, yeah, other people.
Right, so that's the power of resiliency in your life. Thank you for the
Thank you for the demo.
demonstration. Okay, so moving on. Part of the study, this is what they did in the study, right? They looked at 3 aspects, which is pivotal conversations, improving team performance and leading organizational change. How do leaders, in conversations they had with different leaders, they had interviews and conversations with leaders along these three dimensions. And this is where they came up with the different attributes of the different stage development leaders. Right? So for a leader that's an expert, like I said, the person will lead from a place of, I have knowledge. And as I have knowledge, then they're respected because of that knowledge and expertise. And they're not as good in conflict, right? Like I admitted, I am partly still very much an expert leader, a middle manager, right? And also so from that sense, I'm not as good with conflict. And I've recognized it, I've gotten feedback, but I am working on it, right? So this is where low tolerance for conflict is an attribute of this expert leader. Another attribute is in terms of their focus on teams. The focus is more on one-to-one. So leaders in this level, they have one-to-ones as opposed to thinking of their team as a team and how do we bring this team together to work more as a team. It's more of a one-to-one relationship we have with people as part of the team, right? How an expert leader in terms of its team leadership, how we work from a team leadership perspective. And then our focus organizationally is more tactical. Right? We're not very strategic thinkers. We think very tactical on the day-to-day. Right? So this is an expert leader. So we know best, we solve the problem, we get it done, nobody does it better than us. Essentially sums up as an expert leader. The achiever acts differently. The achiever is a bit more strategic, less tactical, right? But it has more tolerance for conflict. So in terms of managing and navigating through conflict, an achiever leader is better at it than an expert leader. Right? And our team leadership, it's different, right? We see our team more as a system and having to bring the team together to work more as a team, right? So it operates differently, more orchestrating more as a team than a one-to-one relationship that we have as experts, right? And our organizational change, as I mentioned, is a bit more strategic outcome focused. So essentially, we facilitate others, we align resources, we drive productivity. Right? Nobody does it better than an achiever. And the next one is around a catalyst. So a catalyst leader, again, moving up the levels, again, is taking more of a step back and seeing the bigger picture and how we inspire others. Right? So their guiding assumption is different. Is setting an inspiring vision. So this is more on purpose. If I establish what our purpose are, right, and I empower the team and the members of the team to be able to deliver on that vision, I don't need to micromanage everything, right? So their leadership style differs. Their guiding assumption. And in terms of an organizational change, we lead through the target, right? So the organizational capacity. So we think of more of growing capacities within the organization and how do we accomplish that, right? So we really have a highly participative and empowered team, and we help create the conditions for that and the environment for that. As a leader, what we do as a catalyst. Right? And our pivotal conversations are different. We learn to balance inquiry with advocacy. And that's a new terminology that I'm still working with and learning. Like inquiry, again, inquiry is being able to ask questions, right? But the questions differ. We learn to ask powerful conversations, powerful questions, right? Powerful questions are more open-ended questions that provides insight and that you won't typically have or gain, right? So that's the difference of powerful questions. So our questions shift in the way we ask our questions, right? So that's in terms of the catalyst leader and what happens, right? So advocacy and inquiry, we need to navigate with, find that balance between the two. And this is what the remainder of the research has found, right? The research found that your stage growth development, you can shift between the stages throughout the day, right? Like you may act as from a place of being an expert in a given situation, and then have to lead from a place of being a catalyst or an achiever in other situations, right? Things change throughout the day, and you have that flexibility. But once you've built up certain attributes of the different stages, like what you've gained from being an achiever, you keep some of those attributes as you move through the different stages. Right? So it's not like you lose what you've gained from moving through the stages, but what they've also said is that you move through the stages, so you don't just skip from being like an expert and go to being a synergistic leader. You're having to move through the stage where just like from being a baby, right? You started as explorer and putting things in your mouth, and then being excited and going through the phases as we grew from being a baby. Similarly, for adult stage development, we have to go through the stages as well. Right? So that's what the research is from. And we can downshift as well throughout the day, right? Depending on the context and what happened. So your agility can vary, and your the downshifting can be intentional or unintentional, right? Sometimes things happen and you may not react to it in the best of situations or context, right? So you can fall back, right? It's part of being human. We're not perfect. And that's okay. Accept it and move forward, right? And then it's about being able to expand our repertoire. We know more, and how do we incorporate that into what we do and what we do. Right? So what talks about now as well is the leadership agility compass. And the compass really has 4 main parts to it. It talks about context setting agility. It talks about stakeholder agility, because we collaborate with disparate stakeholders. It talks about creative agility, which is around we come up with creative solutions to complex, ever-changing situations, right? So the first part around the context setting is around purpose, right? Establishing that purpose that I talked about earlier. That first part of the definition in agility talks about purpose, right? Acting with purpose and flexibility. That's where the context setting agility comes in. Right? And the last piece talks about self-leadership agility. And that's the part that I've been focusing on with myself. Because I've recognized I can't change anybody else. I can't change you, I can't change you, I can't change you. What I can change is this person standing right here. I have control over this I here in this body, and I could do something that changes what I do, right? I can't change anybody else. I can't change my boss, my friends, anybody, my family. I can't change anybody. I can only change myself. And therefore, I have that power to make that change. And in doing so, I show up differently. And in showing up differently, it has a ripple effect, because it's like throwing a stone into the water. When you throw that pebble into the water, it has a ripple effect, right? There is something that hopefully that you gain value from in my sharing this research work, and how I have been working to apply it in my own life and in my own leadership, that maybe you gain some insight from that and take away something, a small little nugget that you could apply to change your own leadership agility or improve your own leadership agility if you so desire. Right? So that's essentially the compass. And within the compass, what you would see here, within the inner circle of the compass with each of the leadership competencies, agility competencies, is really intent and awareness. Right? So each of them, context-centered agility, has situational awareness, right? And it has the intent of a sense of purpose. And similarly, stakeholder agility has understanding your stakeholders. That's the sense of awareness that you get. And then working with that, your intent in terms of your power styles. And what does that mean? We'll go to that a little bit later on, right? And then similarly, creative agility is having the awareness, connective awareness, but then using reflective judgment as the intent, right? And then in terms of self-leadership agility is having that self-awareness. And then once you have that self-awareness, what are you going to do about it? Do you have a developmental motivation plan? Right? Do you do something with that awareness? So it's being able to experiment. Yes?
You said you cannot change others. That's kind of tough, yeah? I mean, you still can change, yeah? I mean...
I can't change anybody. I can only change me, right? This I have control over I.
You can influence.
Pardon me?
You can influence others.
You can influence others, and that's where stakeholder agility comes in, because you are leveraging influence and being able to understand the concerns of your stakeholders and aligning your stakeholders, right? The stakeholders' objectives and your own, and aligning that and working to find greater alignment, right? That's all involved with stakeholder agility. So influence is important. I've led from a place of influence for many, many, many years. Doesn't mean that I can change you. Doesn't. Influence and being able to, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make that horse drink, right? Everybody knows that saying, is it not true, right? So I can influence you as much as I can. That doesn't mean you're going to do anything, right?
That you can inspire for a change.
Inspiring, again, you can inspire, you can influence, doesn't make you do anything, right? It doesn't make you change anything. Okay, so this covers a bit more around each of this, the couple slides on this, right, in terms of what each of the four areas or the four elements of the compass, right? Context setting agility, what it involves, right? It's about scanning the environment, looking at the initiatives that are out there, right? What's important, right? When you scan the environment, depending on the business that you're in, what really is important, right? And once you understand what's important, you decide which initiatives you're going to take on or not, right? So that's more around the situational awareness and achievement and understanding the sense of purpose, right? Like as a company and as a person, if you know your sense of purpose, you're going to look for those initiatives to align with that sense of purpose, right? And therefore, it helps us to think about as leaders how we're serving others in meaningful ways, right? Are we really having an impact or not? Are we just keeping busy? So it's a shift. So that's around context setting. And then stakeholder agility, I talked about it a bit earlier. It mentioned around understanding your stakeholders. What's important for our stakeholders? We work with disparate stakeholders on what is important for our stakeholders. Once we understand what our stakeholders' concerns are, right, we understand what their objectives are and what ours are. And we work as leaders to align those objectives. Right? And how can we find ways to increase that alignment? Right? So two things come into play: understanding the stakeholders, which is having that awareness, but what is important as a leader is knowing our power style, right? And how we develop that power style. So in terms of power style, they talk about assertive, right? As an assertive leader has certain views and they will assert those views, but you're having to balance that notion of assertiveness with being receptive. We're having to be receptive to the other person and understanding, walking in the other person's shoes. I can't just be forcing and being assertive of my own view. I'm having to bring out the best in everyone and solve the problem together. So that's what your stakeholders, right? So it's having to balance that style, right? We're not just balancing inquiry with advocacy, but we're balancing our receptivity with assertiveness. Right? So it's a balance of our power style as leaders of the community. Right? And then it talks about creative agility, right? Being able to solve problems in creative ways. Right? And how do we do that? What do we employ, right? This is where reflective judgment comes into play, right? Where we leverage that as a tool as leaders, right? Once we have the connective awareness, which is comparing and contrasting different ideas, which we already kind of know how to do, right? And making those meaningful connections is really, as a leader, to employ reflective judgment. And to employ reflective judgment, we're going to learn a bit about the reflective action process, like I mentioned earlier, right? And that's the key around being able to help build our leadership agility. Right? So we do solving problems, critical thinking and breakthrough thinking for ill-structured and unstructured problems, because that's what we have in our work. Right? And this is where more learning comes into play, more experimentation and learning comes into play. And then in terms of leadership agility, self-leadership agility, right? Once we have the self-awareness, so meditation does help us improve our self-awareness muscles, and as we gain more self-awareness, we create our developmental motivation plan, right? Understand what behaviors we really want to have as a leader. Right? And experiment with the everyday initiatives and situations that you have to improve upon our own leadership capacities. Right? So you're able to build those muscles over time, right? So you use everyday initiatives to experiment towards those aspirations that you want to become as a leader. And you reflect on the experience and you find it's a repetitive. Right? So it's not like you want to become this expert. You move from being an expert to catalyst, so achiever to a catalyst, right? It's an ongoing exercise that we continually have to do all the time. Right? So this is where I talk about it being a practice, right? And this is now the reflective action process cycle, right? And within this cycle that the research showed, right, we start with assessing the situation, right? What, like I said, the initiatives, when you think about what is important, What are the things that's going on in your world? What really is important? We have to sift the wheat from the chaff and figure out what is important. It could be a problem to be solved. It could be an opportunity that's presented in front of you. And you need to figure out what's important. Once you determine what's important, is to diagnose. Understand what's causing the problem or what's preventing the opportunity, right? We have to diagnose the situation to try to understand more deeply what is involved. Once we diagnose it, it's to set intentions, right? So this is part of where I talked about meditating as a daily practice. My understanding of my purpose in life is to have that connection and to set my intention for my day. So as a leader, I do that, right? I set my intentions for the day. So once you understand the situation and diagnose the situation, it's then to think about setting intentions. What do you want to accomplish? And how are we going to accomplish that, right? And once you've determined that, is then to take action. So it's back to the camera, right? The camera is in play in this whole cycle here. And we're doing this, like I said, all the time in the conversations that we have and in things that we do and our activities on a day-to-day basis. So we're exercising this on an ongoing basis through every day. And the more we exercise and practice this, the more our leadership agility improves. And we become more effective leaders than we are today. So how can we develop our leadership agility? We talked a bit about, so when I talk about meditation, meditation is really incorporating. Thank you. It's incorporating, so to develop our leadership agility, it's around assessing where you are, and you could take a survey. There are online surveys on this. I'll add the link at the end of this presentation and make it available to everybody. Right? So if you're interested, you can take the survey to assess what kind of leadership agility level you're at right now. Are you an expert? I would admit I'm still an expert, by and large, right? I'm working to set my development goals to improve on that. So you once you understand where you're at, you then set your leadership agility developmental goals. Do you want to remain at the same level and become better at that level, or do you want to grow to the next level? You set your goals. Once you set your goals, you determine, okay, what specific behaviors do I want to change? And the one behavior I've recognized I'm working to change, like I said, it's around conflict. Because I've been given feedback and I recognize it and I admit it. I'm not great at navigating and being and working through conflict. So I am working with it. I'm working with a coach right now around the synergy conflict management coaching model, right? So there is a model that you can employ and it helps you work through becoming more effective in navigating and managing through, right? As an example. Once you identify specific behavior changes you want to make in yourself, then it's using the reflective action process to work through that and build on from your to reach your development goal. And wherever you are, start wherever you are and take the next step. Right? It doesn't have to be this big elongated thing you don't have to see from now till 20 years. Just take the next step. Right? And it has to be an integral approach. And when we say integral approach, it's leading from the inside out and from the outside in. We know how to lead from the outside in, which is we have all this knowledge, etc., right? Things that we talked about, which are all very factual and informative, right? But being able to lead from the inside out, meditation helps with that. Connection with the divine, right? All of this kind of helps with being able to lead from the inside out. It's being able to build our emotional intelligence competencies. And again, their competencies are around having EQ skills, right? Daniel Goleman, if anybody's interested and has read his work, right? There are emotional intelligence competencies, which are their skills for us to learn and grow and develop, right? So you can take that assessment too if you're interested. But what is suggested to help build a resilient aptitude is 3 things. One is an aerobic exercise every day, right? So they recommend doing this for 15 minutes, so each of them, so it would be 45 minutes, right? So an aerobic exercise, you know, whether I'm jumping or I'm working out in the gym or whatever, I go for a run, whatever your aerobic exercise is, something that's a physical activity because it gets the body moving and the joints and the muscles and everything moving because the body was designed physically for movement, right? They recommend a centering activity, which is around a practice using deep relaxation or meditation, right? So a centering activity as we did in the first exercise at the beginning, and a creative activity that you enjoy. It could be drawing, it could be drumming, because I did pick up drumming a couple years ago, whatever you enjoy, right? A creative exercise because it helps build, again, different wires in the brain and connections, and plus it's fun, or it can be fun. Okay? So this is how, essentially, we can grow our leadership agility in a nutshell. And that's like pretty much most of what I have. I can share a bit about my journey, and this has been my transformation journey. I actually had a spiritual awakening at Scrum Gathering in Las Vegas. I can go into more details if people are interested in that after and explain what that means. And in 2014, I actually started experimenting a lot on myself. Right? I was the guinea pig. I had control over myself. I started experimenting. So I started eating less meat. So I have evolved to becoming a vegetarian. Right? I made that cut over in 2015. Right? But I participated in Brené Brown course on gifts of imperfection. I attended Mind Camp. Right? I met the Lotus Meditation Group, Chris and Fiona from the Lotus Meditation Group, and I started practicing with them. They have monthly katans and retreats. They also have, during the week, but I have other activities during the week. They have meditation sessions, and they offer all of this for free, right? But I've connected with them. Right? I've changed my relationship with sleep. The way I used to operate before this period of time is I used to live on like 6 hours of sleep every night. So I'm losing 2 to 3 hours of sleep every night. And I would think that on the weekends I could store sleep. I'm going to sleep for 14 hours to 16 hours. You'd never see me before noon on a Saturday or Sunday. I would just be sleeping all the way through, and I could store sleep, and I could use it up during the week. Sleep does not work that way. I'm sorry to tell you that. We need that 8 to 9 hours of sleep, 7 to 9 hours of sleep every single night. So I've learned to respect myself and to set boundaries around work. Because before that, if you knew me before that, my people in my company know that, I've worked till like 4 in the morning. And I'm done with that. Done. Not doing it for nobody, no company, no nothing. I'm done. Right? Because it's an injustice to you as a person, right? To be working that hour, because I need my sleep. If I don't have my sleep and I'm not sleeping at that time, what am I doing? I'm doing not only an injustice to myself, but to my teams and to my organization. How could I be able to concentrate the next day if I've had 0 to little sleep? Right? So I've learned to have a different relationship with sleep. I also don't sleep with an alarm clock anymore. Right? Because it goes back to, I have to be in bed by a certain time, and I have to get up at a certain time. So what are my routines at night, and what are my routines in the morning? Right? And basically, it is a trick though. The trick is that it's around light. Right? My eyes are able, and my body is able to sense light. So I've done this, and it's another experiment. It's kind of funny. I had gone to Asia, and they had these patches that they give you in Asia. Right, that you could sleep on the plane. Well, it's not really sleep, it's rest, but it helps anyways, right? I came back with these patches, and one day I decided, I'm going to sleep with this patch. Well, no, I wake up way past late because my body can't sense light anymore. So don't sleep with patches if you intend to sleep without an alarm clock, right? Because your body needs to be able to sense light once you've gone to bed at, at 11 and knows that it's going to get up at, 7:30, right? To have your 7 to 8 hours of sleep, right? Ideally, it would be 9 if we could get to the luxury of 9, but 8 is good for me, right? 8 to 9 hours of sleep. Doesn't always hit 9, but, right? So my relationship with sleep is different. I've set boundaries on work, and I've learned to celebrate me, which is a new thing. I learned that with Brené's Brown course. Not many of us are good at celebrating ourselves, right? So I've learned to celebrate myself. I took a photo session. I found this photographer. I loved her awesome photos, and I paid money. Yes, it was expensive, but I loved it, and I had an awesome time, and I have amazing memories of these beautiful photos of myself, right? So I've learned to celebrate myself and to have fun and just enjoy it, because we're only here for a time. So why not enjoy being here? Being here, not doing here, but being here in this life, right? Enjoy it for the time that we are here. So my life has shifted from a life of success to a life of significance, right? And I'm experimenting. I'm continuing my daily practice of meditation. I'm combining it with yoga. I practiced yoga for many, many years. It was more from a physical notion of yoga, right? I went to release stress because there's so much stress in my life. That's where I started my yoga practice. Till I discovered meditation, I'm going to combine it now. Now I truly understand what is yoga. Yoga is the union of the mind, body, and spirit. Your mind, body, and spirit with the Supreme. It's that union. right? I didn't understand that before. I was practicing yoga, doing all the asanas, and, right? But didn't understand all of that before until I discovered meditation. And now I put the two together, and I also combine it with prayer, right? Which is my gratitude prayer. When you combine all of this together, it is very powerful in your life. It makes a difference, and it helps us to totally navigate with all the things we described earlier about it's a fast-paced world and it's uncertain and it's complex and all the things we described about the world earlier. It grounds us, and as we saw in the exercise, makes us more resilient. So we choose different responses when we live a centered life. And when I say choose different responses, things are going to happen in life, right? You're going to lose a loved one, right? You're going to lose a job. Somebody's going to get sick. These things happen, right? Someone dies, right? Or you can get into an accident. Bad things are going to happen. They're just part of life. How we respond to them will differ, right? That's the key. And that is my story of where I have gone through my own personal transformation. And it's an ongoing journey because it's easy to fall off the wagon anyway, right? So the days that you do fall off the wagon, accept it, forgive yourself, move forward, right? Continue on the journey, and that's what I'm continuing. So that's where my story and why it's related to this topic and why I feel passionate around leadership agility, because this has helped me change my life and I have transformed my life. And I'm continuing to do that because I see benefit. I see benefits in us all having greater leadership agility, starting with oneself. I've started with myself, I've started on that journey, and I'm continuing on that journey. Right? So if we're all able to do that, we show up differently in the world. And as we show up differently in the world, like I said, it's a pebble in the water, it has an effect. One person can make a difference in the world. Right? So it really is around what Gandhi has said, right? From my first Agile conference back in 2006, I was actually at the airport. I'd never heard this quote by Gandhi before. And I saw this quote in the airport on a mug, and I was quite taken with it. Probably ample, maybe inspirational from related with the Agile conference. I don't know, right? But I was in the airport and I found this mug that said, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." And I really try to live by that now, right? From since then that I've encountered that quote, I'm quite drawn to this quote, right? Which is, we can change the world. We starting with oneself, right? So I lead with love now, right? So really, love is around what I believe my purpose is. Right? I'm here to love and be loved. Love is really the absence of fear. Right? It's not so easy to do. Loving someone, yourself first of all, and others is not an easy thing to do. We think we know what love is, but there are things that get in the way of being able to truly just love each other. Right? And if we had more love in the world and we led with more love, the world would be different. It would be. And this is my challenge to you, or invitation to you, I would say. Right, and these are the credits, and then these are some of the books. So, anything else you guys want to share, things you want to ask, or it's now it's open for, I don't know if it's time to leave. That's the summary of the research.
Does the book has stories like yours? Or
it has different stories. So each of the chapters talk about situations, like, for an expert leader, here's the situation. They talk about different people who are in that role, right? And they give an example, and they have illustrations. So it brings it home. It's very interactive that way, even though it's just words in the book, right? But it does describe situations for the different kinds of leaders, the kinds of situations that they're in, what they're doing, and how it shifts them from the current stage of leadership level that they're at, and helping to grow their own leadership agility. Yes, the book does describe that. So was this helpful? Yes, no? You all have other questions?
Yes.
Pardon me?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, I'm just going to ask, so of these books, which one would you start with?
What? Sorry? Oh, pizza. There's food if people want to grab some food. Sorry.
I was just asking, of these books, which one would you start with?
Depends on what you're looking for. So I'll explain what each of these books and why I kind of selected them. So leadership agility, we kind of covered that, we obviously also said that today, right? This one. Right, I explained a bit about the gifts of imperfection, Brené Brown. Brené Brown, I don't know. So part of it is, I know there's a lot of books and we're short on time, right? And when I say we're short on time, we're all busy people, right? And therefore what I tend to do is I tend to look for the videos online, right? Because I tend to be able to give an hour to watch a video than, a couple hours to read a book, right? So I get the Coles Note version from watching the videos. So you can watch Brené Brown video. Her video is around vulnerability. So she talks about vulnerability and she talks about courage. So the gifts of imperfection covers a couple of areas. Vulnerability is one of them. Setting boundaries, being able to give yourself permission. So she always wear coats or things that have a pocket because she have notes in her pocket that gives herself permission. So that's her metaphor of the physical metaphors, I guess, right? Because she actually does wear coats. I don't always have coats, but sometimes I do mostly, right? But she has these pockets that she gives herself permission. So she talks about those things in her book, right? And she talks about play and being able to give ourselves permission to play as well, right? So play taps into Stuart Brown's book where he talks about what are the attributes of play, right? So that's where the connection with play comes in, right? Because as kids, we were naturally joyful and playful. And if we lived our lives that way and remember how to do that, right? It brings out our creativity, is where play comes in, right? The daring greatly is around courage. So Brené talks about that as well, right? Because it's often hard to do some of the things we need to do, like being able to face our fears. Like I didn't always drive on the highway, but I had to face that fear and do something about it, as an example, right? So she talks about courage and what it means to have courage, right? So that's a great book around courage, the daring greatly, right? The 5 languages of appreciation is relatedly, I came across a book, The 5 Languages of Love, and the same author wrote this one because it's more applicable in the workplace, but it's essentially the same topics, but he's reframed it for a work context, right? Relatedly is what the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace. And the stress-free living one is around, like I talked about, connection with meditation. And how do we have stress in our lives and how can we relieve stress? Like I started off with yoga as a physical way to relieve stress. But then that it ties in with meditation, it really relieves stress in other ways. From just so he has a video online, it's called The Happy Brain, and it explains the connection of neuroscience and the brain, right? And how that all works and when we calm the activity through meditation, the benefits we gain and the practices and what we could do, right? Oftentimes the mind is that like computers, if we're all work with computers, most of us kind of do, right? It's like open files. We keep opening files all day long and we have all these open files open all over the place, right? Like, I open them on my computer, but physically in our brain, we're also doing that, right? We're thinking about this thing, I have to go shopping, or I have this function to go to and I have to cook and I have to do this and I have this project, and we keep opening files and it's a lot of distraction, right? So how do we learn to manage our own brain, right, and calm those activities, the exercises you can do to gain focus, right, and not let our brains live in just autopilot, right? So the mind, the 4 states of the mind, 2 are healthy and 2 are unhealthy, right? So one of them is autopilot, which is unhealthy, but we need autopilot for certain things, right? Like you know instinctively how to get up and brush your teeth and certain things, right? Like you don't have to remember brush up and brush down, right? Like we need autopilot for certain things, but certain things we don't need autopilot for, as an example, right? So we learn to better manage our brains, if you will, and get better value from it. Emotional intelligence, I think that one's kind of explanatory, right? Start with why, which is around purpose, right? So there's a video by Simon Sink on purpose. Crucial conversation is a key one, because how do we change the conversations that we have with others? How do we learn to position certain things when there are challenging conversations we need to have, right? To tie back into courage, right? Having the courage to have those conversations, right? And search inside yourself is kind of related back to the stress-free living, because it's discovering what's within you, right? Because they're inner resources that we have. And if we're able to employ and understand what those inner resources are and be able to draw upon them, they would help us a lot in the way we lead in the world, the way we live in the world. And I thought first of all, it was quite funny actually, because he's a Google engineer, and he became the happiness person. That he was like the director of happiness at Google or something like that, right? Like, so but he has quite a bit of comedy in his book, right? So it's a pretty funny read if you read that book, right? And then Mastering Self-Leadership is one that was recommended or mentioned in the Leadership Agility book, which I found pretty intriguing, right? I haven't actually read that one myself, but I have it on my backlog to read that one. The Art of Possibility is one that I can't I think that, oh, we all think we know how to love, but like, wow, loving is really a hard thing to do, right? Because our ego gets in the way, judgment gets in the way, a lot of things, misconception, we filter things and we add meaning to things that don't necessarily are there, right? It's part of the human existence of our brain. And this is where learning to manage our brain better would help us. And this is where I'm fascinated with neuroscience. So that's my story. You're all welcome to our pizza.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.